So it's been a while since I've made anything. About a month ago, I started a podcast called Double Tap. Originally, I wanted to do a short film over the summer, but I had started getting pains in my right hand. Turns out it was a little thing called rheumatoid arthritis, and it sucks. The podcast was a way for me to keep creating things while not being able to use one of my hands much. But since then, my hand has gotten better, and I've learned to just live with it. A few weeks ago, I stopped posting episodes of the podcast. I wanted to take a break from doing that to start doing what I wanted to do to begin with, make movies. But movies about what exactly? I don't know. It's not difficult to come up with ideas for a film, but coming up with ideas that are feasible to make is something else. And that's when it hit me. If I can't think of anything right now, I can make a video talking about my other projects. In particular, Intercom and Horror in Me. Both are available to watch on this channel. So let's talk about Intercom first. Intercom was created for a media course I was part of at the time. The task was to film, edit, and publish a short film or music video that was at least 5 minutes long. There weren't really any restrictions on genre, so I opted for a thriller movie. The movie is about a reclusive guy being harassed over the intercom. Intercom was an idea I had for a while before the task was even handed out. You see, I like one location movies, even better if it's a simple concept like a person is trapped in their house and they aren't alone. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I had already done pre-production, but the problems would pop up during the actual filming of the movie. Remember what I said earlier about film ideas and coming up with ideas that are feasible? Well, I thought Intercom was feasible. But I was about to find out that you can never really prepare for anything when it comes to filmmaking. For starters, I was on my own. I didn't have any friends that lived close by to help, with the exception of one. We'll get into that later. So it meant I was pretty limited to what I could do in terms of shot composition. Not saying there aren't workarounds, but well, take this shot for example. This is just me in a coat standing outside. But it's shot from the perspective of my character Matthew. When you're shooting on your own, it can be a pain to set the focus correctly. I didn't have any kind of stand-in except for those bins, so I used those and hoped to God I was in focus. Next was just turning the camera on and off. Not so much an obstacle, more just comical to look back on how silly you look. Now fortunately, I had a friend who agreed to play a part in the film. He placed a coated figure here and can be seen here under the stairs. I was fortunate to have him help with the production of the film because without him, I would have been playing both parts. It's also thanks to him that this shot where I'm standing outside went from looking like this to this. Yeah, having someone to operate the camera really makes a difference. The other thing I had to consider was equipment. I had the essentials down, the camera, tripod, a shotgun mic, even a little Zoom audio recorder for Foley. I also had 2 little Sokani LED lights that came with color gels. I've used these lights in all of my projects. I wouldn't have known about them if it weren't for David F. Sandberg and his making of videos. They're a fun watch and I find them to be motivational. But back at the topic at hand, Sokani lights, while versatile, didn't provide enough power to properly light the scenes that take place at night. So a lot of my shots are just underexposed. It's not terrible, I just wish I had larger lights at the time. But that could have been a problem in of itself because the next thing I had to worry about was space. I live in a small flat. I can make space to set things up, but I can't move around a whole lot, which is why almost all of the scenes that take place inside have very little movement. If I'm walking into a room, it just cuts to me already being there. The one thing that I'm glad I tried out was using reflective tape for an eye glare effect. This was another thing I learned from David F. Sandberg because he used reflective tape in his own film Lights Out. The tape cost me about £3, so I guess that was the budget of Intercom. Near the end of production, I was losing passion for the project. You see, on top of doing all of this, I was doing other coursework. Most of it theoretical, but the rest was practical, like doing a radio show or putting together my graded unit project. When other things begin to add up that aren't even relevant to what you're focusing on now, it can get pretty stressful. And this is coming from someone that just said they had everything planned out. When I had finished filming, I knew most of the audio was going to be bad, especially the exterior scenes, so I used a Zoom audio recorder to capture most of the audio you hear in the movie. While doing all of that, it was required that I keep a huge log of every possible sound I use. The name of the file, how long the file is, and how much of it was used, and when in the movie it was used. I guess in hindsight, it prepared me for how things may look in a non-student production, but it only added to the stress I was going through at the time. And honestly, once it was all over with, I felt like I had just rushed everything. The project for me turned from creating something cool and fun to meeting deadlines and juggling between different workloads. I'm still happy that I got to do Intercom, but there are times where I wish I had done this differently or had more time for reshoots or even filming additional scenes. I also wish I took initiative more in asking for help. For all the stress that I had, I felt like it could have been alleviated had I just talked with a friend or a lecturer. The thing about me is that I'm not really a social butterfly. I tend to keep to myself and I like having my downtime. I guess that's why I enjoy watching David Sandberg's videos so much. They're useful and funny, and his films are amazing, but he's also relatable. The next project I wanted to do, and this was for my graded unit, was Horror in Me, a documentary on the horror genre and my connection to it. If it's not clear, I really like the horror genre. I grew up with it at a young age, and since then I've made it a point to try and watch every horror film that I can. I want to write and direct my own horror film someday. So it made sense to wrap up my time on the media course with a documentary that I felt reflected who I was as a creator. I couldn't just make a horror movie, so this was the next best option available. The documentary was fairly straightforward. I planned everything like I did with Intercom and made my own schedule of when I'd be doing a specific thing. The best part to me was doing interviews. Part of the course I was doing involved interviewing skills and what not to say or do and so on. That's why the highlight of the documentary was interviewing another filmmaker. It was my first time interviewing someone that wasn't a friend or a relative, so it was pretty cool to talk to someone that works in the industry. As for the filming, this time I was just behind the camera for the most part. I got to shoot some reconstruction scenes and other pieces that were fun to do, but I think what made doing this documentary such an easy time was the fact that most of it was just done in the edit, like grabbing some film clips and just narrating over them. At times I felt like maybe this wouldn't be acceptable for a graded unit project, but the faculty were okay with it and I passed with straight A's, so everything is good, right? Going to spend the last bit of this video talking about the aftermath once I had uploaded these two videos. Both of these projects were uploaded shortly after one another and I had officially wrapped up my time with the media course. I had also heard back from my university choices and got offers for 4 out of the 5 that I had selected. The one I didn't get into was my first choice, a film course that has a reputation of being the best film course in Scotland. Every time I spoke with a lecturer about it, they always said, yeah, all the best students go there and you'll do fine, don't worry about it. Yet, here I was. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't the end of the world and I'm happy with my second choice, but I felt like shit when I got rejected. Just before I left media, a lecturer reached out to me giving me their feedback and they asked me what I was going to do with Intercom. They wanted to know if I was going to submit it to any festivals and I just said no because I felt like it wasn't worth it. Ever since uploading it, I couldn't help but compare it to literally any other short out there on YouTube or Vimeo. I didn't like it. In fact, I haven't liked anything that I've put out. Not just Intercom and Horror in Me. There's that voice in my head always telling me that nothing that I do is good and I should feel bad for only doing Intercom because it was an idea that seemed feasible to do at the time. Like, what sort of creator only creates something because it sounds easy to do? I haven't even stepped into the industry yet and I'm already trying to take the easy way out. I don't mean to derail the video. I think it's important to be open and honest with yourself, even if it's just acknowledging that little voice in your head that's always full of anxiety and doubt. But don't worry, because this video doesn't end on a sad note. When I responded to my lecturer that I wouldn't submit to festivals, he offered me some words of reassurance. He told me that I was at the beginning of my career, and it's not always about how something looks, but about the stories and the themes and emotional impact. It's funny because when I had shown Intercom to some friends before making it available to the public, there were two of them that both came to the same conclusion, that whatever was going on with Matthew was in his head. The coated figure never existed and the voice was never there. And I didn't know what to say besides making a joke that that was always intended. I think it's just indicative of my bad writing, but it proved to me that even though I might think it looks bad, there are always going to be people that perceive it differently for the exact reasons that my lecturer just stated. And that may seem obvious to a lot of people, but for me, it was what I needed to hear at the time. I needed that reminder that people can watch something and find amusement in the tiniest, smallest little details. And because of that, it was all worth it. The stress, the struggles, the paperwork. I'd do Intercom all over again. So that was the making of Intercom and Horror in Me. Sort of. I feel like I've lied to you. I've got no clue when my next short film will come out, but I will get started on it if I have something good, like a decent idea. But until next time, thank you all for watching.